Good morning. This is Bob with County Records Research. Today is April 28th, Friday, the last day of, or last working day of April for 2017. Again, this has been a very fast-moving year, so we are seeing a lot of opportunity coming up very quickly each week. And with opportunity, we also want to make sure that you're aware of method, because the opportunity presents itself, but we have to be prepared to take advantage of that opportunity when it presents itself to us. So I've activated the visual portion of our presentation, so you should be able to see our main page on the website. You see our logo on top, the 800 number, and our online chat support line. There is an operator standing by, so you are able to use your chat if you have a need. But let's go ahead and get started with our presentation. So first of all, I'm going to select the option to log into my account, and I'm going to type in my username and my password. Below that, we see the box with the squiggly lines in it. I think I can make out what it is, so I'm going to go ahead and type in the numbers and letters as I think I see them. I emphasize that because, as always, these letters are blocked slightly. Notice I don't have to capitalize my letters to go into the system, and if I got it right, when I click submit, I'll be right into my account, and I'm going to hit submit, and we're in. Now, this is the welcome page where we can see the different county zones we're subscribing to. And if I scroll further down, there's all the hot buttons that I can use to access the other pages of the site. Now that I am logged into my account, I do have access to property search. I also have access to our forms page. So you notice this is our forms page where we have the various documents you might need when you're purchasing properties with County Records Research. Now, we're not acting as a broker, we're acting as your advisor to give you the options that you have as you look at your different methods of research, but also look at your methods of acquisition, because research is a big part of how we find what's out there. Basically, we're giving you a treasure map, and we encourage you to get out there and explore the different ways to dig that treasure out of the mountain, so to speak. So these are our various forms on the forms page. Most people will use item 22, our real estate purchase contract letter size. This is your standard offer form to write an offer from yourself to another individual. No agent or broker involved. Remember that this is a very simple form, and it's intended to simply get a property into escrow where the bulk of your documentation takes place, as well as title, research, and things like that. So when we write an offer, we're focused on hitting a price point. Now, right below item 22 is item 23, which is a PDF where Kurt's actually filled out an offer. And this one, we actually give you examples of him writing an offer for a $700,000 purchase price that encapsulates a deposit of $100,000 and taking over 2 existing loans on the property, and actually asking the seller in this case to write a third or carry-back loan. At the bottom is a profile that is what was used to create the offer itself. So you can use this as an example. Not everyone's going to go for this complicated an offer, and one of the things that we always recommend that you do is gauge your offer based on the property, but also on the seller. Okay, if this is too complicated a proposal, then the seller might reject it because they don't understand it. Okay, so again, gauge your offer towards the seller so it's something that they can accept and sign. A signature on this offer form is what gets us into escrow. Refusal to sign it doesn't let us buy the property. So it's very important that we focus on the presentation, so to speak, and make sure that the party that we're making the offer to has no reason to reject it. For that reason also, notice Kurt has selected seller's choice of escrow, okay? Because what Kurt is selling you is this: make it easy. Make it easy on the seller. Because if you choose an escrow that's right nearby, you even offer to pick them up and take them there to sign the paper, you've just made the process easier. Also, on the offer form, we're specifying a time frame. We're specifying a 15-day escrow. which is fine if the homeowner is already ready to leave the property. If, however, you have somebody that's overburdened with excessive junk and unpacked property, then it might take them a good month to get themselves out of there. Now, I must tell you, this is another aspect of this where you need to be creative. Sometimes it's helpful to offer to get them a storage room. Sometimes it's helpful to literally hire some folks over at one of the local warehouse stores that are out front and go there and help the people pack up. So don't overlook methods that can help expedite the process of acquiring the property. And don't overlook the fact that you can be creative in terms of how you put the offer together to make it work. Now, if I go to the second page of the form, a lot of people ask us, how do I know I have the right to inspect? And that's in item 7 here at the top of page 2. My purchase is as is, but subject to interior and exterior inspection and approval. So if I don't approve of what I find when I do my inspection, I can back out of the deal. Similarly, if I'm picking a title company, item 3 specifies that I have time to check the title information and make sure I'm satisfied with it. Now, in this example, Kurt specified only 1 day to look at title. Now, you might find a property you're making an offer on has a very complicated set of loans in our system. So maybe you give yourself longer. Now, just keep in mind, Kurt specified 1 day to look at title and 15 days to close escrow. That's a very short escrow process. Most escrows take at least 30 days. So just keep in mind, if you have any questions when you're writing up an offer, that you have a lot of liberties that you can take in terms of how you define the deal. And then finally, notice the item 6 at the bottom of page 1 is, how is title going to be held? How is it going to be vested? And it says to be determined in escrow. So what this is specifying is that I don't have a firm answer to how I'm going to hold title on this property. Now, when he fills it out this way, he's also indicating, from his perspective, that he's leaving the door open to a wholesale agreement where he passes this deal on to a third party. So it's important to remember that we have a lot of liberties in terms of how we define the offer. If we're simply writing an offer from person A to person B and we want to leave the door open for person C to come in and take over the deal in a single escrow, and I emphasize single escrows are the best in terms of simply getting the deal closed. And a lot of escrows don't do what's called a double escrow. And we have had people ask us about that. So it's important to know, if you keep it simple and you make a selection of options based on what's best for both you and the seller, then you're much more likely to get a signature on the document and to get an escrow opened and close it and buy the property. So that said, I'm going to close this record out. That takes me right back to the forms page on my website. And let's move on and do some shopping. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select property search. And this is going to take me to the search screen of the site. Now, earlier I was looking at all of Los Angeles County. And I would like to do a little shopping in LA County, but I like to trim things down a little bit. Whenever I'm looking at records, I always know that if I'm gonna grab a big target area, like let's say Riverside and San Bernardino County or all of LA County, I'm gonna get a lot of properties. And if I scroll down, whenever I open up the site, it's always going to give me notices of default. Now, I can search notices of default, or I can search upcoming sales. Notice how when I change options under my choose one option under general property search, the system changes the date range. The reason being is that notices of default, we don't have an auction date to play with. We only have a listed or added date to work with. And the system is always going to give me a 2-week range as an example, so that if I pick notices of default, it's going to give me the last 2 weeks ending in today. Now, if I want to narrow that down a bit, then I can just alter it. Let's see if we got any new records in today. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of this first date, the 4/14, and I'm going to select today's date, the 28th. So now what I just did is I've got all of LA County selected, and I've got NODs, which are notices of default. I normally look at trustee sales, but let's take a look at some notices of default today, all right? Okay, and now I've just limited my results to just the brand new records, the most freshest leads in the system for notices of default. Now I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that we've got them all uploaded today. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit search without Polygon and see what I get. All right, so we have uploaded a group of properties in the system with our new notices of default that just got into the system today. Above the map it says 0 to 20 of 65 records, so I got a total of 65 that I can play with. Now notice we got this one odd one that's kind of sitting up here. The geocoding is wrong because it's saying that it's in Washington State. This is a property that's in the city of Lancaster, which is in our LA North zone. Okay, so we've got this little errant orb here way up on top, but we all know that it belongs down here. Now, what I'm going to do, since I've got my search results from 0 to 20 of 65, is I just want to broaden the number of properties that are showing up on the report by underneath the map, and on the left it says show 20, 40, 60. I'm just going to click on that 60. Okay, now what the system just did is it just reformatted the map. I got a lot more properties. You can't see as well because the map's kind of skewed because you got that oddball one up in Washington where it doesn't belong. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in the map a little bit. And there you can see that you can, by zooming, you can get a better idea of the overall character. See, now that one that was showing way up in Washington State, that should be over here in Lancaster. Okay, as a matter of fact, it looks like that one is on 12th Street. Let's zoom out again. That one's on 62nd Street, so it's not that far away, so don't let the map throw you. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back in again. Now, one of the things that I can do is if I want to bunch these up, I can scroll down a little bit and I can select the option to sort by any of the headers here up the top of the report. I can sort by zip code, I can sort by lot size, I can sort by square footage, estimated value. If I have a certain amount of money to spend and I want to get a deal, let's say that I have $300,000 to spend and I want to get a property for about 75 cents on the dollar. Then I might start targeting properties in the $400,000 range. Okay, so I could sort by value, but let's go ahead and sort by city. So I'm going to take my mouse cursor, I'm going to put it over the word city, and I'm going to left click. Now what this just did, it just bunched everything up by city alphabetically, and a little quirk of the site, you'll notice that when I select city initially, it goes from Z to A, so Whittier is at the top of the page. There's usually a lot more Whittiers, but we have what we've got, and we're going to start working down the report with this property on Ceres Avenue in Whittier. Now I haven't looked at these before, so we're both getting a fresh look at this at the same time. So this property on Ceres Avenue in Whittier, this is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. Notice the 8 in front of the 3s. That means that there are 5 other living space rooms besides the 3 bedrooms. So you have a 3-bedroom, 3-bath home with 5 other rooms in the property. The square footage is only 1,500 square feet, so these rooms are not that big. Okay. Now, I show an estimated value of $567,775, or about 568 grand. Okay. Now, on the far right, notice the auction equity figure, 139,954. There's no minus sign, so this indicates a positive auction equity. To the left of it is my loan position. Now, this is kind of a Reader's Digest version. I guess I just dated myself right there, but this is kind of a Reader's Digest version of what's within each of the profiles on the site, because now I know that it's foreclosing first with a property that's worth about $568,000. And according to our system, there's about $140,000 in equity above and beyond what's owed on the loan. So if I took this 139.9 or 140K and deducted it from this estimated value, then it sounds to me like they owe about $420,000 on a foreclosing loan that is in first position. Now, also the senior junior loan column gives me a set of zeros, a slash, and another set of zeros. This is telling me that with a foreclosing first, there's nothing ahead of it because the slash indicates the position of the loan in question. So, and again, I want to emphasize this is very important. The senior junior loan column indicates the loan itself that's foreclosing by the slash. The figure ahead of it is any senior debt, the figure behind it is any junior debt. And when you have a foreclosing first with no second, then you're simply going to have zeros in this column. Okay, so 0/0. So that's why that's the way it looks. So it looks to me like the house on Ceres Avenue is approximately $140,000 rich in equity above and beyond what's owed. And so this is a perfect opportunity to go make an offer subject to an existing first that's foreclosing on the property. Let's see if I'm right. So I'm going to click on the Ceres Avenue address and open the profile. So now what do we have? We have a property on Ceres Avenue. I'm going to go down to my property detail section. So here's our property detail section. You'll notice that this gives us a nice overall view of the property itself. It was built in 1953. As I said earlier, it's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 1,576 square foot building on a 6,400 square foot lot. Okay, pretty straightforward. Single story. Now on the right hand side it looks like the purchase date was 1987. So these folks have lived in there for a little while. And let's look at the loan. It's from 2006. So they owned the property since 87, and then in 2006 they got that call from the lender that said, hey, you got equity, use it or lose it. So now they used it, and now they're on the verge of losing their property because they borrowed money out of it, and now they're in the situation where the money's probably been spent and they have to pay it back. Okay, and as with a lot of folks, their eyes were bigger than their wallet, and they are not able to pay it back. So right now we have a $400,000 loan from 2006 that's a refinance loan, not a purchase loan. So if I was going to go to the auction and bid, knowing they bought the house in 87, I would have to double check and make sure that there was no senior loan to this 400. Now, I can tell you our researchers are excellent at what they do, so it's very likely this 400,000 is all there is, because that's all we show. Now, if that's the case, let's take that as an objective fact and say that that's all there is. Now, we do so the delinquent amount on this loan is $26,721. So assuming that on a $400,000 note from 06, their payments are somewhere in the range of about $3,000, then we'd have to assume that they're about I don't know, about 9 months behind, roughly. I'm just ballparking that because that's what we do. So I'm just ballparking that I think they're about 9 months in arrears, and it appears that they have significant equity. So now let's look at a few more facts. The property address, 9914 Ceres Avenue in Whittier. The owner's address appears to be the same. The mailing address is the same. So what that tells me is this appears to be their primary residence or their home. So Christopher and Geraldine Rodriguez are what we call the trustors, okay? The trustors are the folks who borrow the money. So Christopher and Geraldine bought their property in 1987. They lived there for a number of years, probably raised their kids there, and then refinanced in 2006 to take out the $401,000. And now they've hit a crisis point in their lives. They can't make the payments. It's been about 9 months. Maybe somebody's lost a job. Maybe somebody's gotten ill. Maybe there's a divorce. Who knows? What we do know is that they can no longer sustain their situation. So now we can approach them and make them an offer to buy their property, because the key in going after foreclosure data is that we're looking for people who are no longer able to support their real estate investment, and they need someone to come in and take this problem off their hands. Now, if I was going to go talk to Christopher and Geraldine, now also notice they are the owners as well. That's important because the trustor who borrowed the money is the one that's in jeopardy of their credit being affected and their loan being foreclosed upon. The actual owner on title can be different. Most of the time it's the same. Most of the time you're going to find Christopher and Geraldine bought their house, Christopher and Geraldine refinanced their house, and Christopher and Geraldine are in foreclosure on the refinance loan. That's most of the time what you're going to see. So now, if I go to the property, I know I've got to work with Christopher and Geraldine. Okay. I also know that their delinquency is about 26.7, so I have to have about 30 grand easy if I'm going to go make an offer to them to buy their property. Okay, and I know that this 26.7 is going to go instantly to the lender who's in foreclosure right now on the loan, because I've got to put this in check. I've got to stop this foreclosure from happening. And the reason that Christopher and Geraldine are willing to accept my offer is that I'm going to come in above what's owed. So the lender's going to get the 400,000 plus the 26, and then I'm going to have to offer them something too. So whenever I look at the situation like this, I always got to say, if this property is worth over 5, then I've got to figure out where I want to make my offer if it looks to me like they owe about 426. Now, another point I want to make is they might owe less than 426 because this loan is 11 years old. They might only owe about 420, okay? So if they owe, and let's ballpark it, let's just guess and say they owe about 420, and we're just using round numbers, okay? And based on that, what am I willing to spend to buy this property to throw in, the carrot on the stick, so to speak, so that these folks will be incentivized to sell me their property? Now, first of all, I show an estimate of value in our system of 567 and change, so about 568. Notice we have a link to Zillow. It's there for a couple reasons. First of all, they got a lot of equity here. If they see the writing on the wall and the issues that they have aren't resolvable, they might already have this listed with an agent. So I'm going to click on the link to Zillow, and it does not appear they do. It says it's off the market. Now, Zillow says they think the house is worth about 538 and change, so 539. So there's a discrepancy. We say 568. Zillow's down at 539, so we're off by about 30 grand in between Zillow and us. Who's right? I don't know. I don't know, because this house could be drop dead gorgeous, or this house could be the Haney place. We don't know. So we have to go and evaluate the property. That's why we get out there and are ready to write up an offer from that forms page where I just showed you item number 22. You need to print those out. Print out the blank page and then practice writing up an offer looking at item 23, the PDF that Kurt filled out, so you get comfortable writing an offer. So let's say that you do your numbers and you figure out that this place is worth 540 once it's fixed up. Now, notice I just threw that clause in there, once it's fixed up, because bottom line is this: I don't know if I can sell it for 540 right now. Chances are I can't, because they bought the property in 87. It could be original from 87. There could still be terrible wallpaper. They could still have the popcorn on the ceiling. They could have a lot of issues that would need to be resolved before I could sell this as a modern turnkey property that the system says is worth somewhere between 540 and 570. But the most important thing to remember is that if I'm going to go make an offer to them, I have to ask myself, what is my goal? Do I want to flip it, or is this long term? If I want to flip it, then I need to do a quick strategy. I need to figure out how much am I willing to sell it for. If Zillow says the place is worth 540, then I'm going to throw the option of selling it for 570 out the window. I'm going to say maybe I can sell it for 540. Okay, so let's take a look at the map function, and I'm going to zoom in using the wheel on my mouse. Now I can also use the little magnifying glass goodies here if I have a tablet. okay? But I prefer to use the wheel on my mouse. It just gives me more control. And then I like to hit the bird's eye option and see the property. Okay, what do we got here? Looks pretty clean. Okay, not horrible. Okay, so these images, again, what you're trying to do is just determine, it looks like it's pretty clean. It looks like they might have newer windows. Doesn't look like it's got a lot of problems. The roof doesn't look bad. So let's just say I've got some interior work to do that I can sell it for $540. So I'm gonna guess that maybe it's gonna cost me 20 grand to do my fix-its. So that puts me at 520. Let's say I'm going to pay an agent, so now I'm at 510. Or let's make it 505 just to be good. Might have a good agent. They might want to get 15 grand out of this. And let's just say that I'm going to have to give them some money on top of it. So let's say I want to give them 50,000. Then that would put me at about 450, 460 in that range. Now you might do your numbers. Now notice I really haven't given myself my profit in that yet. So maybe my offer comes all the way down to what they owe. Maybe my offer comes all the way down to 420 or even 4. Okay, and again, think about where you need to be. Crunch the numbers. What did I leave out? I left out an emergency fund. What if I find out that there's $5,000 worth of plumbing repairs? Okay, so maybe I come down and I realize I got to get this place at 400 and no higher. Well, that's a short sale if I believe that they owe over 4. So bottom line is this: we crunch the numbers and we figure out where we need to go. Maybe we figure out that we're only going to give them 25,000 and that maybe we're going to make 25 off the deal. Okay, so we structure a plan so we can get to a sale price where we're going to sell the property, because honestly, if Zillow says it's worth about 540 fixed up, and I do all my purchasing, I do all my rehab, I do everything else I need to do, I listed at 550, hoping I'm going to get offers at 540, and the highest offer I get is 530. I'm going to take the 530. So I better have a plan, structure it. So now if I list it at 550 and I can sell it for 545, woohoo, I got it. You know, now I could sell it for 560. Who knows? There might be somebody that has the house next door and is willing to spend a little bit more to own 2 houses together, or so that they can have family live next door. But don't bank on that. Assume that you're going to sell it for slightly below market. Assume that your rehab costs will be a little bit more than you anticipate, and just get down to where you need to be so that you can make the profit you need to make, you can do the rehab you need to do, and you can pay your taxes, and you're still okay. And always assume that you're going to sell it below market just in case. And then if you actually sell it at market or higher, then you just have, that's gravy, or it's icing on the cake. You just want to make sure that if you wind up having to sell it a little bit lower, that you're still okay. All right. And if you're not sure how to crunch those numbers, just do a spreadsheet and plan it out. Some people do a very complex one. I recommend do something a little simpler. Okay, keep it simple so that for yourself you don't overthink it. And this could be a deal, okay, because there's as much as 120,000 in this in potential equity or more. But you know, you just got to be conservative and don't overestimate what you can sell it for, and don't underestimate your cost of repairs. Okay, so that's that one. Now they have, since that's a brand new listing, or a brand new notice of default, excuse me, we're not going to see another notice or an upcoming trustee sale notice for a couple months. So you've got time. So I would start playing with that. Now the very next property is in Westlake Village, And this one has an estimated value of $0. I don't know why that is. There's obviously some discrepancy here. That might be a commercial property. Normally when you see a 0 for the estimated value, that's going to be commercial. And I don't want to get into that. That's complications to my life and yours. So I'm going to step past Westlake Village and we're going to go on to the next one on Karen Drive. This is a house in Tarzana. This is big. This is a 6-bedroom, 4-bath. 12 total living space rooms. So there's 6 other rooms besides the bedrooms. Now, this shows me the market value is about 1.2 million. And it's also telling me that instead of a foreclosing first, this is a second. Now, even though it's a second foreclosing, which means that the first of 250,000 here is ahead of it, the system is telling me there's almost $500,000 in equity in this property. So that's telling me taking the second and the first and adding them together, that there's still those are about 700,000, and there's still about almost 500,000 in equity. So this one is also screaming to me, come make an offer. Now, notice that there is a third here. In this particular situation, because there's a second foreclosing, remember the slash in the senior junior loan column represents the foreclosing loan, so it's the slash. Now, to the left of the slash is 250,000, that's our first. To the right of the slash is 209,165, that's our third. So we have 3 loans in play on this property, and yet it appears they have almost 500K in equity. So this is looking really interesting, and Tarzana is a really nice area. If you haven't been there, it's definitely a good area for flipping. Notice that we have a great big lot, 21,000 square feet. We have a house that's over 3,000 square feet. I'm going to guess this one probably has a swimming pool. So I'm going to put my cursor over the Karen Drive address and we're going to open it up and we're going to see what we can see. Okay, so now remember what I said when I looked at the previous information on that little Reader's Digest page, okay? Notice that I said they owed about 7 combining the first and the second. And sure enough, we've got a foreclosing second of 500,000 from 06, and the delinquency is about 36,000. Like with the last one, I'm going to assume that part of that 36 was eaten up by the principal that they paid down in the last 11 years. So I'm going to think they probably owe about 525 or so on the second. Now the first, which was 2 years older, I'm going to think they're behind on that one too. Okay, so ballpark, as I think they owe about 775 on both the first and the second. Okay, now if I was going to bid at auction, I don't have to worry about this third at all. Okay, notice the third I have from 2011, that's $209,000. Okay, now it's possible, and I'm going to throw this out there, it's possible that that third might actually be a recorded modification of the first loan. I don't know though. There seems to be plenty of equity and somebody might have been able to take out that loan in 2011, so it's possible that they just simply took out a third loan. Now, if I'm going to go make an offer to the family, remember carrot on the stick, right? I have to have an incentive for the seller. If they only owe about, and I guess I'm just going to make a ballpark guess that they owe about what I see here, the 959. If that's about what they owe, I could offer them about $1 million. Now, I don't know how much work this property is going to need. The system says it's worth about 1.2. Now, remember what we did on that last property. It's and notice I'm not doing a lot of in-depth research into the loans because we're at the NOD stage and we're not buying these at the auction. We're making offers. Okay, so I'm looking at this information. I'm thinking, okay, they owe about $1 million, and I'm just ballparking it because that's all we need to do. Okay, and I'm going to ask myself, what am I willing to spend for a house I think I can flip for about 1.1, 1.2? So first of all, I'm going to check Zillow and see if it's listed. Now Zillow says this one's worth almost 1.4. Notice how on the last property Zillow was under our documented estimated value, and now this time they're up. Okay, so I got to tell you, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Now this house could be absolutely gorgeous, and there might have been recent sales in the area that were astronomical, because this is a country club property. And I'm telling you that because when I was looking at the map on the other page, that's what I saw, that this one seems to be near the golf course. Now I'm just going to see with the price tax history here on Zillow, when was the last time this place sold? And it said 97, January of 97. So I'm going to close that out because now we know it's off the market like the other one, and the last time it sold was 97. Now, this 97 purchase price, they say is $25,000. Okay, I don't buy that one for a second. Now, what I believe happened is that maybe this was a lot at that time. I don't know. No, this was 1960. The property was built. So why would they have sold it for $25,000? That's a little odd to me. I would have to research that further, but that purchase price looks really low even for 97. If this was the 70s or the 60s, I would say yeah. So maybe, and I'm just going to throw this out, maybe there was a transfer of title in 97 interfamily, and maybe this 25,000 purchase price was all the way back from the late 60s or the 70s when this family originally bought the property. It doesn't line up. And the tax value of $34,000 for a house that's worth $1.2 million today, this doesn't line up to me. So again, I think that this property changed hands interfamily in 97. I think they have a longer history living in the house. I just do. Now, scrolling up to the map, I'm going to zoom in again using the wheel on my mouse. And notice they're right across from what looks like a country club here, the El Caballero Country Club. I'm going to hit my bird's eye option, and there's the home, and there I was right. Nice swimming pool. It looks like a custom swimming pool. Okay. Now notice when you're doing this, when you're playing with this, sometimes these little blue dots tend to migrate around. So we do want to just be aware that as we go out and look at these properties, it's very important that you do your drive-by and check the property out and make sure you're looking at the right one, because as I was rotating the image, the dot moved around quite a bit. So it does look like you've got this nice home with, it looks like a little pool house in the back. You've got the custom swimming pool. Looks like you've got a beautiful view on the hill. And then over here, looks like you've got the hill and then the golf course. Now, they're not on the hill, it looks like facing the golf course. If this dot's in the right place, then it looks like they're not on the hill, that's actually facing the golf course. Okay, so they don't have that view. Looks like they've got this view on the other side. Okay, which is fine. It's still a beautiful place, still a great location, you know. Now, obviously with this hillside here, you're not necessarily going to take a stroll down the hill to go play a round of golf. You're going to actually have to go down to the course. But it's in a great spot. It's quiet. It's got a lot of positives. It's got that custom pool and the big lot, and this is a nice big house. So this has got a lot of positives to it. Now, they owe about $1 million. We say it's worth about 1.2. What did Zillow say? It was worth almost 1.4. Yeah, Zillow says it's worth almost 1.4. So, like with the other one, we do our math. We ask ourselves, what am I willing to pay? If the price I need to hit is below $1 million, then I can pretty much assume that I'm going to have to get the lenders involved in the conversation. However, we say it's worth 1.25. Zillow says it's worth 1.4. If I could get this for just over what the lenders owe, then that's good enough for me, because I know I can turn this property over. So I would look at this situation. I would be prepared to make an offer to Jeff and Tony. Okay, so notice in this situation, Jeff Edwards is the trustor. Jeff and Tony Edwards are the owners. So that tells me Jeff and Tony are on title. Jeff is the one who borrowed the money, so it looks like Tony must have got added on. Well, maybe Tony got added on in 97. Maybe Jeff got married. Okay, because remember, these dates did not line up with these purchase values. So that's why I'm saying that 97 just didn't sit right with me. So let's say that maybe Jeff owned the property and added somebody on. So that's why we've got the dates that don't exactly line up. The important thing to do is know that when we make an offer and get it into escrow, at that point, that's when we make sure that all the parties that need to sign the documents do sign the documents. And if they don't, then we don't part with any money. So now the escrow, of course, is going to do their part to try and help us close that deal, because that's how they get paid. So just remember, once you get this into escrow, everybody's on your side to close this deal. So don't hesitate to get the ball rolling and get these folks to sign the papers. But you have to make a decision. If it's worth 1.2 to 1.4, what am I willing to spend for it? Am I willing to go over what the banks are owed? In which case, I'm going to make an offer either subject to or come in with new funding. Subject to means I would take over these loans and bring them current. Now, if they owe the $500,000 loan $36K to bring them current, then you know they're going to owe these other loans probably another 40 grand between them to bring these other loans current. So I'm talking about coming in with about $70,000 just to satisfy the lenders and get them to back off. Okay, so let's just make that assumption that I'm going to have about 70 grand for the lenders. So maybe I take a position that I'm going to offer these folks $1,150,000. Okay, there might be enough room here. Okay, now you got to crunch some numbers and see what makes sense. Okay, now what happens if I go to the property that they've owned since '97 and there's no one there? It's completely vacant. What if we find out that Jeff and Tony are no longer around? I'm not saying that's the case, but it could be. Then we have the opportunity to follow this one through the process of foreclosure, because either there's someone to accept our offer and sell us the property or not. It's always A or B with foreclosures, okay? So first things first, what are you willing to spend? Okay, and if you want to spend $1 million even, that's your offer. If you want to spend $1.1 million, that's your offer, okay? Don't think any harder than that. Now, when you go make your offer to Jeff and Tony, that's when you're going to find out if they're open to the prospect of selling the property. If they refuse, okay, then you wait it out, because if this goes to auction, $200,000 of that offer will fall off, and you've got potentially the option to buy this at auction for about $700,000. If you do the math and you go buy the property and you realize it needs a lot of work, that's when you decide what you want to do and how much you want to offer, because either it's a short sale or you wait for the auction and let the auction create the short payoff for the lenders by letting you bid on the second and ignore the third. Okay. Now, this is also an option to explore the potential for buyouts of lenders. Notice that Citibank owns this second. I'm not sure if there's enough room to bid on to buy that third out, although I would consider it if I could get it cheap. Okay, and again, I'm just emphasizing, if I could get this third cheap, if I could get this third for about 50 to 100 grand, I might consider it, because then I would have the potential to do the foreclosure on a third loan, and it's very likely that nobody would show up at my auction. Okay, now, is this first on the table as a possible lender buyout? You betcha. So I would not assume I can buy the second, but I would consider buying either the first or the third loan as either a junior lender buyout on the third or a senior lender buyout on the first. But you need to explore and find out if these are small or private lenders. If they are, that would be a really good idea with this particular property. So I'm going to close this one out. Let's go below the one on Karen. Now, notice we got another one in Sylmar that also has a 0 value. Since I can't gauge that value, I'm going to skip down to another property. Now, this is in South Pasadena. This one's on Prospect Avenue. Notice this has a unit number. So this is actually a condo. Okay, whenever we see a unit number or an apartment number, and they're described differently. Some parties will call it apartment number, some parties will call it unit number, but this is unit number 10. Okay, in South Pasadena. Now, notice it's giving me a square footage of the unit of 1,517 square feet. And in this case, it's giving me a lot size of 2,300 square feet. Okay, now I'll tell you this. If this is a condo, then they don't really have a lot size. If this is a house, it's odd that they would be having a unit number. So I'm going to click on Prospect Avenue and open the profile and see what we can see. Zoom in, hit bird's eye. Okay, so this is a series of townhomes. This is unit 10. Okay, notice we've got townhomes with a swimming pool. Okay, so this is a townhome valued at about $718. Now I got to tell you, I would double check this market value, because I think $718 for these units that's high. I don't trust it. So I would double check. I'm going to take a look at Zillow and see what Zillow says. Now Zillow says $740. Okay, so obviously maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know South Pasadena. But if you do, and you discovered that this is in fact a $700,000 property, terrific, because it looks to me like they owe about 400. Actually, it looks like they owe about 5, because couple points. Notice this loan is only about 6.5 years old. It's from December of 2010. It's probably a 30-year loan, so they probably haven't knocked it down all that much. It's a $440,000 loan, so you probably got about a $3,500 to $4,000 a month house payment, and they're up to $70,000 in missed payments. So I'm guessing that's about 20 months worth of missed payments, or about 1.5 years. Okay, so David Lohr is the trustor. David Lohr. He's also the owner, and this appears to be his house. The mailing address is the same. So again, it looks like he owes about 5 on a property that looks like it's worth about 7 fixed up. Now, I got to tell you, I'm very conservative when I see a townhome, because if they're using standalone homes as a comparison, and you're looking at this and you're thinking this place is something you can resell for $720 or more, I would be very careful. I would examine comps in the area from other sources. You could go to our resources page and look at the comps from Chicago Title. You can go to a local realtor and see if you can pull some comps there. Bottom line is this: don't assume you can sell this thing for $720 to $750 and then find out when you go to put it on the market that your offers are all about $675, because then your whole plan is blown out of the water. Okay, so be aware of the numbers and don't guess. Now, be conservative, determine what you're willing to spend. Let's assume that I can resell this property. Let's just use the number I just used, $675. Let's say I can do a little spit and polish on this place, spend about 10, 15 grand and sell it for $675. So if I'm going to spend 15, I'm down to $660, and he appears to owe 5. This looks like I've got some room here. Okay, so even though this might not be your optimal opportunity, this could also be a great rental unit. So on that note, I'm going to go back to the map image and I'm going to zoom out, because I always like to see if there's anything like a local college or university. I see a golf course. Okay. I was going to say, this is South Pasadena. There's got to be something nearby. California Institute of Technology. How about that? Pasadena City College. Okay, so this has got some potential for someone potentially to want to rent that unit, possibly going to school in the area. So there is some potential there as a potential rental. If you know the area, that's even better. It's not that far from Huntington Drive. So you got a few opportunities here if you know your area. Again, it all comes to knowing what you want. Okay, it is right off the 110, so it does give you a chance to be able to go down to the city if you want a rental property that someone can just jump on the 110. and go back and go down to downtown LA. So this has got some possibility to it. All right. So what I would do is I would look at going and talking to this fellow David and seeing if he's interested in selling me the property. It does look like this is a purchase first. It looks like he bought the property in December of 2010. His purchase price was $588 and the loan was $440. So it looks like he came in with a sizable down. Okay, and so it looks like this is just a guy that's down on his luck. He hit a problem, and this is the kind of people that I see as being susceptible to us making an attractive offer somewhere in between the $500 that he owes and the potential $600,000+ that I can sell the property for. I think there's enough room here to go to David and make a deal. I think someone will. I don't think this property will flounder. And let's find out if he, because I didn't look, okay, so Zillow says the place is worth about $740. I didn't look to see if it was on the market or not, and it's not on the market. Okay, now according to the description, it's an end unit, and it's a 3-level, so this has got some pluses. Probably going to need some work though. And yeah, that was the last date that anything happened was the date that he bought it for the $588. So I would say go to this fellow and make him an offer, but crunch your numbers first. And if you're not sure what you're doing, call and get some advice. Talk to Kurt and let him know what you're trying to put together. Let him look at it with you, and hopefully you can come up with a price that makes sense. And if you can lock this down, get him into an escrow. When you're in the escrow, you walk the property, you do your inspection, and make sure you get it down to a good price. Okay, and I'm going to close that one out. We're back at our search results. So we're going to go to the next one on the list. So now this one, this is a foreclosing second loan. This is a property in Southgate on San Carlos Avenue. This is a smaller home. Notice the square footage, all of a sudden we're dropping down to under 1,000 square feet. Sounds like my first house. 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 946 square feet, very much like my first property. The lot size is 5992. Okay, and market value is estimated at 369.5 or about 370. And we're showing a foreclosing second. Now this is the first one we've looked at that has negative auction equity. We have a foreclosing second loan, and we have a first of looks like 106,009 or 107,000. So what the system is telling me before I open the profile is that the 369 or 370 value that they actually owe approximately 410 on just loans 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open San Carlos. Okay, and here's what I've got. I've got a foreclosing second from 2004, and we're just going to walk through this one because this has got some interesting numbers. First of all, notice the purchase date is September of 1985. My goodness, that's a long time ago. So 1985, they bought the property. Okay, all the loans here are refinance loans. None of these are purchase loans. So these were takeout cash. They most likely had an original loan when they bought the property. Their purchase price was $85,000 at the time. So they probably borrowed about 50 grand at that point. And then as the property rose in value, they were offered additional loans on the property, and that's how they got into trouble. So now what we have is a loan from 2003 for 106, one from 2004 for 150, and one from 2006 for 115. I'm going to guess that all these loans are there. I'm going to guess that what happened is that Oscar and Evangelina, what happened is as they moved forward in life and they kept getting the lenders say, hey, you know what, you just got this much more equity, that they just went with it because why not, you know? And you know, most often when you have folks that are in this age category, they're a little wiser than this, but people do what they do. So I think this is accurate. I think you got a foreclosing second of 150,000 from 04. They owe currently 150. Well, actually the delinquent amount is 151. Now that kind of throws me that the delinquent amount is 151,507. I'm curious about that. That's a lot of missed payments on that loan. So it's possible, again, looking at the age of the purchase date, that maybe you've got a widow or a widower that's got financial issues that fell way behind on this loan, unless this is a balloon note, which is another possibility on the second. This could be a balloon note, which would explain why they owe the 157. Maybe this was a business loan where they used the house as collateral. So because for them to owe 151 on this loan from, this just doesn't ring true for me, unless this was some kind of a business loan, because maybe he had a business and had to finance that business by pulling, using the house as collateral. Now, Carla had a question. How can I reach out to the third position lender to purchase that loan? So Carla, I think you were talking about, let's see, which one were you talking about? Were you talking about the one on Karen Drive? This one here? Because here's what I would do. I would copy the parcel number. I would go back to my main screen and I would scroll up and drop it in the box and I'd hit search. Okay. Notice what I just did. I'm going to back that up. I copied the parcel number from the profile, the APN. Oh, the one I'm looking at right now? Hold on a second. Okay, so you want to reach out to these folks. Okay. Well, you can do the same thing I just did with the Karen property. Notice the philosophy is the same. Now, on the Karen property, it showed that that third lien holder had actually started a foreclosure. There was a notice of default that I pulled up in the system. On this property, when I put in the parcel number and I hit search in the single property search, I got the very same record. Okay, whenever you do that, that tells you that there's only one record in the system for that property. Okay, so the Karen property, when I ran that, I got a record that showed me that this 209 had started a foreclosure in 2016, which was interesting. So even though I guessed wrong as to which property you wanted, I was able to find the information necessary to try and track that lender down to try and buy their note. Now, on this property, because when I ran the APN search, it brought up the same profile, that tells me that this third has never started a foreclosure on this property. And that's actually good news, okay? Because what that tells me is the holder of this third note is doing nothing at this point. Now, they just got a notice of default from loan 2, which should be kind of putting a little bit of fear into them, a little anxiety, because that tells me that my loan from 2006 for $115,000, I'm now in jeopardy. And I'm going to have to bring that second current, or if it is a balloon second, I'm going to have to pay that second off. Okay, so again, I'm curious as to why the delinquent amount is so big, that 151, unless that is a balloon note, like a term loan, which is ordinarily something you only put on a business. But bottom line is, if I was the holder of this third, I know that the delinquent amount's 151. That means I'm going to have to bring that 151 current. Now, what I would do here is I would do some research. I would actually see if I could go and talk to Oscar or Evangelina and see if I could talk them into letting me write them an offer on the property and see if they would give me some idea of what they actually owe on the loans. Second option is I could approach the holder of the third loan by going to a title company and pulling a copy of the deed of trust from the county records and any assignments, if there was an assignment, if that loan has changed hands since '06, it could have. And the bottom line is this. If I can get the holder of the third to communicate with me, they can ask the second, how come you're owed so much money? What's going on? Because the third lien holder can ask the second because the third's at risk. Okay. Now, if it turns out, that this situation is one where, because the bottom line is this: if the delinquency is 151, what if they still owe another $100,000 on top of that? I mean, is it possible that they've missed so many payments that they owe 100 plus another 151? I don't know. That affects my math because this place is only worth about 369, right? I'm showing 369 in our system. What's Zillow say? Zillow says 377, so very close. Okay, so bottom line is this. It's worth about 369, let's say, fixed up. Let's say that if I'm going to buy it, I'm going to probably want to pay about 250. Okay, and I'm just throwing a number out there. I don't know what the true number is. I'm just making a wild guess. And I'm saying, how can I get to 250 if they owe over $300,000 on this property? I don't see it happening unless either it's a short sale or I picked this property up at the auction by bidding on a second at 150, knowing the first is only owed 1, but I don't know that. I don't know what the senior loans are owed. If they owe 151 on the second, what do they owe on the first? There's a lot of unanswered questions here. So what I would be doing is I would be trying to make an offer to the couple and see if I can actually get some real information. And if I can't, then I have to find out. First of all, I would do a search with title to find out if this $106,000 first is actually there, since they've never done a foreclosure, and the third has never done a foreclosure. There's too much vague information for me to commit to anything other than buying this one through an escrow, where I get all my information up front, and if I don't like the information, I can back out of the deal. That's the only way I'd see her pursuing this one at this point. Well, this has been Bob with County Records Research. This is our Friday presentation for April 28th. We're actually out of time, so we're going to go ahead and stop for the day. But we wanted to say thank you for joining us on our Friday presentation. Join us next week on Wednesday. We'll be giving you an overview on the website. And again on Friday, we're going to go in and start shopping properties and look for more deals.